Welcome to the Bougie Black Brother Network.
Hello everyone, this is Alicia Carr with Women Tech Talk, and today we are having this interview that we had to fix from last time, and I'm interviewing Miss Kim Crayton, our sister of our sisters, the powerhouse of Women of Code,
Atlanta. Yeah. What's up, everybody?
And so, Kim, let's go to the spiel.
Okay, what's the spiel?
Introduce yourself, darling.
Okay, you want me to introduce myself?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Kim Crayton, and that's Crayton. I am, how do I put this? Do I want to go backwards or do I want to go forwards? I'll go forward. So I have a master's degree in training and development. I'm a certified special needs teacher. I taught high school. I have years of experience working with learners of all ages, from running after-school summer camp programs to working with people getting their GED from ages 5 to almost in the grave. I've been working with learners forever. I know how to write curriculums. I do workshops. Currently, I am getting a doctorate in business administration, focusing on technology entrepreneurship. And in the tech space specifically, I run a group called Junior Dev Mentoring, and the Twitter handle for that is @JRDEV Mentoring, and that's for providing a platform for people who are trying to come into code and development to find support and mentorship. I run a group called the Spectrum Codes, which is helping to aid people on the spectrum to transition into technology jobs. And then finally, well, my Twitter is at Kim Crayton 1. And then my baby now is Community Engineering Report, and that's at COMMEGN Report.
Right, so you have a podcast as well.
Yes, so that's
started.
That's my baby. Yes,
right.
yes.
And I've been listening to it, and I'm
okay.
yes, girl. I've been like, what? Because we both have podcasts.
Yes.
We talk about different subjects.
Yeah.
You know, me, I focus on my ladies.
Yeah.
My sisters with a Y.
Yeah.
And you talk about the diversity, inclusion,
and safe spaces in tech, but from a economic standpoint.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
It's all about the business. It's all about the money, and why diversity, inclusion, and safe spaces matter.
Right.
To your bottom line.
Right. It does. And so now, that right now, me and Kim are in Spokane, Washington, at Django Conf, and we actually switched, positions. I'm keynoting, and she's just, one of the...
We didn't switch positions.
She's the massive keynote. She always get a keynote. I'm like, damn it. I may have gotten, 3. She gotten 10.
Whatever. That is not true. There's a time and space for every message.
And I know that.
And so this is we didn't switch. You earned this. Yes, but I'm doing also speaking here.
And so we're sitting in this comfortable chair, and so now we're going to really have this real conversation. Is that Kim started to speak, and then she was like, yo, we all need to speak. I mean, she basically told Women of Code Atlanta, yo, we need to, get us out there. We need to speak. We're unrepresented community, and we need to put more of us out there. So Kim basically, pushed several about, push us several over the edge.
Yeah.
And said, learn how to swim. And so with that, Atlanta has really been pushed out
kicking
there.
Kicking butt speaking.
To this event.
It's 13 of us speaking at Connect Tech.
Right, which is a local conference.
Yeah, which is a local conference. And we're actually going to put together a map, because so many of us are speaking all over the world now. And the workshop, I did a workshop, a speaker's workshop, and that was in spring. And just a short amount of time, how people have taken to, because I gave you the tools, I gave you the template that I use and told you how to do it, because we all have a story to tell. and we all have a right to tell our story, particularly in this space when you're talking about underrepresented and marginalized communities. There's been one predominant voice, and again, I don't hate white men. There's nothing to get, but your voice, your opinion is not the only one out there.
Right.
And thankfully, tech is making, as challenging as it is, tech is making a space. Again, it's for economic reasons. Let's be honest. There's some great people out there doing have this as a mission, but when businesses are gravitating to it because it positively affects their bottom line.
Right, but
and
so,
so
it's a different. So, when I did the discussion panel with AWS, and one of the panelists said, it's all about the money, but it was from a different perspective the way he was saying it. We see it as if you don't put women in there, it's all about the money. And we're starting to see it with all this. News articles that's going on, that's being put out there, that's talking about how women are not valuable. From a science.
Yeah.
Okay, let's be real. The manifesto that came from Google.
Yeah.
Brother Man was like, it's a scientific, perspective.
Well, he was speaking erroneously about biology. And this is where I'm a huge proponent of people watching the documentary The Ascent of Women, and that's ASCENT, The Ascent of Women, because the documentarian actually gives a historical perspective of how women who were once equal to men and in some cultures were raised above men, how through religion, through male dominance, women were put in not allowed to go out in communities in some instances, were required to stay at home. There was a threat of life, and because of those things, we were socialized the way women are socialized because we didn't have a choice. We couldn't go anywhere, so we developed these social skills. But that is not biology, that's sociology. And that's if you're looking at the anthropologist's perspective on this, anthropological, that's what I'm trying to say, perspective on this, it's not about biology, it's about we haven't been allowed to, let's be honest, we have been a threat of death, told that these spaces weren't ours, where in history they were ours. Again, some of the pushback on the whole manifesto is that women were the first computer programmers. But at that time, those jobs were considered, so his argument is not a sound one.
Yeah.
There's some points he made that about his freedom of speech and all that I'll get to in a moment. But I want to get back to the fact of the whole, oh my God, what was I saying?
With the women, with him.
Oh yeah, as being the programmers, that was considered not only was it women, but there were a lot of people of color doing those jobs.
Right.
And it was because that job was seen as clerical.
Right.
It wasn't until that job became one of status and started paying more money that again men pushed women out of these positions. So we created the computer programming field. That was a part of what we did, and again, that whole historical thing, when men find opportunities, they malign women, and it becomes a part of the nomenclature, the societal thing of this is our thing, but it was not your thing. So I always harken back to people, go look at history. I am a huge World War II buff. I will watch anything on World War II, and particularly the 5 leaders of World War II, from Japan, Germany, Russia, England, and United States, and how their personalities shaped what was going on.
Yeah, that is true.
And how they handled certain things based on their perspective, what they knew. So, for an example, Churchill was better positioned as and I just saw this documentary, was better positioned as a prime minister for wartime because he had been for the 10 years leading up to the war, had been doing writing a biography on his ancestor who won a war, and that's how he got his elite status, because his ancestor was given this castle and all this other stuff. So he had been studying war up until that time. So he
was very strategic.
It's because he'd been studying. It was what he had been focused on for 10 years. So he was the right person to put in charge at the wartime. But once the war was over, they wanted a peacetime leader. So it's again his perspective. And so I'm saying all this to say that for us to move forward, we need various perspectives. We cannot just allow, because you cannot create products and services for a global community, a global market, from one or two perspectives.
Right.
Because now your customer base is not just in your small community if you had a hardware store. Your customer is not just in the United States or your country if you had a mail order business or a chain of stores throughout. That's not who your customer is just anymore. It is people from all over the world.
Right.
And you, just by your own perspective, don't have the information you need to make those choices business-wise for everybody.
Right.
And so that's the dollar. That's the dollar talking. So you need people of color, you need women, you need people from the LGBT community.
Right.
You need people who are from different time zones. You need people who have no poverty on a totally different level than most of us in the United States understand. Yeah. You need people who can view who have a historical relationship like with one issue, but they take it from totally different.
Yes.
You need that.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean that all of that gets put into your product or service, but you need those perspectives and you need to have those conversations so that you know that you're creating the product and services that your demographic needs.
Yeah, but that caters to if more companies were to look at it in that perspective, how marketable they would be, just how important they would be in all community.
I call it competitive advantage, using organizational change or organizational culture as competitive advantage, because the organizations who do this well have a competitive advantage of, and that's the whole thing about competitive advantage. There are two things about is you either get a competitive advantage by making stuff cheaper than everybody else, or differentiating yourself.
Amazon.
And so, but they've done both.
Yeah.
They've made stuff cheaper and they've differentiated this. So that's why so many people cannot touch Amazon, because not only do they curate all this stuff and sell it cheaper than the store, and if you're a Prime, you get it in 2 days.
Right.
That's a differentiation. I can get my stuff not only cheaper, but I can get it in 2 days. But I can also, with their Amazon Web Services, that's differentiation. So they do it both ways. They have differentiation and they have cost.
I mean, because I think about it, when I think about them, I was like, oh my God, look what the hell they doing. You know, every time I'm reading my tech news, they doing something. I'm like, God damn it.
Yes.
What the heck?
They're innovating. They're innovating all the.
In the news, they put, we're hiring 100,000 people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh,
yeah.
I said, they onto something.
Yes.
And then you hear, okay, we bought Whole Foods. Oh, that ain't the half of it.
Yes.
They now, is it Amazon? Amazon is shipping food from Sprouts.
Yes. So think about I don't like going to the grocery store. I hate going to the grocery store.
No, you ain't.
But I like Whole Foods. So I like, and it's not for me like the whole elitist, the 1%. They just have a variety of foods that I like. And so with their volume, people who live in grocery store deserts or whatever they call it, there are no grocery stores and no health food. How easily can they get food that's of value to them now?
Because remember they were talking about the drones. Amazon talking about drones. They now have their own airplanes now.
Yes.
And so I'm looking at Amazon as like, so what the hell is next?
Yes.
So now that you got this, going on, of course. And this is the thing. women have to go to the food store. Women,
That's who buys groceries.
And so,
mostly.
and think
Not
of-
me though.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an exception.
Well, I mean, as far as shipping it, it's
Yeah.
like I go there, I pick my stuff out as a woman, get my diapers, get my toilet paper, paper towels. Guess what? They learn the needs of the market. They know who is going to. They learn that if anybody's going to be buying, or it's going to be the women.
The larger percentage of household spending is women.
Oh, I'm gonna put that on my presentation.
Yeah.
I just thought about that.
Yeah.
Just a comparison.
Yeah.
So, with that, why do you think that this is happening to our tech community?
What is this? Be specific. What do you mean?
Why is, like you said, this is not, you said it's not going to change. When we sat down, we said this is not going to change how they treat or think about the women in tech community.
Who said that? What do you
said,
mean?
meaning, how did you say it? You said it like, it's not going to change it. They're going to still be the same. Companies are not going to change the way they do to do business. We're going to still see this the issue with diversity, inclusion. It's going to always be there.
If I said that, that's not what I meant, because if a business wants to stay in business, it's going to change. So change is the only constant there is. You either go change with an open policy and go through the growing pains and get through it as an organization, or you're going to do it begrudgingly and be very painful and not be successful. I can go, as a researcher, I can go to any research database and find and put in organizational change and find thousands of articles on organizational change, just because it's so challenging. Once you get a culture or policies and stuff in place, it's so challenging to change those because people get comfortable. The companies who are thinking about this at the beginning, when they start developing their products and services and start iterating this process, developing their culture, thinking about, and inclusion just isn't, let me stop here. Inclusion just isn't women and people of color. It's how do you deal with people who are in different time zones who are on your team? Why are you making them get up at 4 in the morning to have meetings because they fit the time zone for the United States? It's a whole bunch of things that people need to be thinking about, that people aren't having conversation about, that people need to be included. So if I decide tomorrow to start a business or to put out a product or service, I need to be thinking about how to be as inclusive to, first of all, after hopefully you've identified your market.
Right.
And so that drives what inclusiveness is. Now, if you're just dealing with, again, the people in your community, there might not be a reason for you to be inclusive, because it makes no sense, because that's the people right there. If they're all, let's say if they're all Asian, that's what Chinatown is, you know?
Right.
So people don't go to Chinatown to get, well, I don't think they go to Chinatown to get Mexican food. You know, they go to Chinatown to get Chinese food.
Right.
Or Asian inspired food. And so if that's your case, then you do. But if your case is to hit a global market, well, like most tech companies, you cannot. I don't see how you can create an effective tech company just from a small community. So if your thing is to get customers from a broader base, you have to do this, and you need to be thinking about this from the beginning, so that you're iterating. As you're iterating your product, as you're doing the agile method for your products, you need to be doing that for your culture, figuring out every 2 weeks, let's try this out. Oh, it didn't work. What was the feedback? How do we, the same process, and put those things in place. And once you get these processes in place, you need to document them so that you're not reinventing the wheel every time. That's how business runs. Business runs on processes, procedures, and policies.
Yeah, my husband will tell you the exact same thing.
That's it, because that's how you don't lose money. Because every time you reinvent the wheel, you're making shit up at that moment, and you've already done it, you're wasting money again.
And so we speaking about that, we also talked about the fact that when Google fired him, they fired him because of the fact that he used.
Well, it was a violation of their code of conduct.
Right, their code of conduct.
And so when people talk about the First Amendment is a relationship or agreement you have with the United States government. It has nothing to do with a private business that you work for. Your private business that you work for has some, you sign off to agree to the rules that they have.
Exactly.
And so, yes, you may have every right to say what you want to say. And had he said it in a personal Medium blog, that would have been a whole different thing.
Right.
But because you use company tools, company communication channels to spread your or just share your message, it not only violated their culture, their code of conduct in that fact, but I'm gonna say some stuff that people aren't even talking about. Yeah, women were offended. Yeah, white men, a lot of white men were. A lot of people were offended. But the bottom line is, you disrupted my business. Mm-hmm. You took the focus. So now, when I go to work on Monday as Google, we can't do business because we're dealing with this thing.
Yeah, that's the
so
issue.
with that, the issue, again, it goes down to business. It's economics. Now I have to stop. Because this man was going on vacation, I have to come back.
Yeah, he was on.
and deal with this thing. And now I want to have, because they were going to have this open forum, but then he got messages that the people of color, the people marginalized women, did not feel comfortable because they were afraid for their own safety. So now your people are afraid for their safety. You've disrupted their business. Mm-hmm. That's money. So not only that, but then when you did that, because you use company communications channels, they had to come out strongly because now people are thinking, is this how Google is this their message? Yeah. So now you taking me, whatever I'm working on, I got to stop, get my lawyers together so we can go, craft a message so that the world, because this is a world thing, knows that this is not our message and blah 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 blah. That costs money, that costs time, that's resources. So yes, you deserve to be fired. There are consequences, even with First Amendment. The government may not come in, but there are consequences to behavior. That's just period. And that is the thing that I find most disheartening with society today. As a high school teacher, this was a major issue I have. Yeah, you can do what you want to, but that does not exclude you for the consequences that I'm going to put on you based on what you did or did not do as your instructor. Right. So you can call your mama. You can. I don't care, because this is what I had outlined, and because you did not meet that standard, there are consequences. That's just life. Right. And so now it's this thing. We live in an environment where we say, we do, we act, we harass people, we do all kinds of things, first of all, that we wouldn't do in their face. We would not do in their face. And then we do it and we couch it in, my First Amendment rights. What you don't have a right to do is make other people uncomfortable. That's not what you have, and that's what code of conduct's about. It's about, if nobody, and it's not about being politically correct, because I don't believe in politically correct, because I can tell you there's some fun times as a special needs teacher, there were some terms I had to use because the political correct terms people didn't understand. Right. They made assumptions about certain things, and I would have to say, no, this is what this means, so that they could understand that.
And that's another thing too, because people don't understand the code of conduct. People think that a lot of people don't understand why it's put in place.
And so for me, a code of conduct is a thing that says, when you're talking about inclusivity, diversity, basically creating a safe space. Right. I'm going to be a bit devil advocate, because Google said he had every right to say what he said, and they had channels for that. They had back to that groups that people could have a conversation where he, and I'm not even going to say made a mistake, because this was quite intentional, and I dare say calculated, because now he has career as a pundit on something. I mean, he doesn't need Google anymore. All these people think he's this very outspoken person, so he's going to write books, he's going to do all these kind of things. So it's worked to his advantage. Right, it did work to his advantage. And so that's fine. You've done what you did, but from what the CEO and people have said, Google, like other large tech companies, they have places for you to air your issues in ways that don't impede on the rights of others. That's just the bottom line. And if you're not getting satisfaction there, then you don't actually need to be there. And that's another thing. That's a private company. That is, you don't have the, because I'm going to tread on this lightly, because then people are going to try to flip it back and say the same thing about people of color or women. And then they don't need to be there either. But again, it goes back to I can always bring it back to the economics of it. Yeah, you can make a hostile environment, and yeah, that's why women are leaving tech in droves. Yep. But it's affecting you negatively economically.
Right.
And that's the bottom line. And that's the difference, because they can always find another white guy. That's
true.
They can always find.
And another thing is that they're not the only ones. We have the same issue. We're seeing this continuously where these big companies are getting their foot put in their mouth.
Okay, so let's address that, because it's, let's start with it. Let's use Uber as an example. So, and this is why it's economically. So I'm speaking to those people who are really thinking about small businesses and how they're going to move forward. You'll never get to your IPO with this kind of culture, and this is why you need to, or stay there. You might get there, but you won't stay, because now venture capitalists, again, about business, it's all economics, are now starting to do risk assessments based on your culture. And why would I invest money in a company that has a negative or bro culture or whatever when 2 years from now you may be sued for sexual harassment or discrimination? That's my money. So now it's really hitting you in the financial pocket, because you won't be able to get that funding that you're looking for, that seed funding, that growth funding, any of that stuff. Because people, and you're seeing it with these venture capitalists who are leaving their own companies because they've been sexually harassing people.
Yes, I've seen that a lot too.
Because they've been discriminating against people. They're having to leave. So the culture, it's it's only because, okay, I'm not gonna say only, that's an absolute. What I'm gonna say is economics is driving them. They may have the best intentions, and there may be people in the company who this is something they've been wanting to do, but as long as it was accepted by the masses, people didn't stand up and say against it. But now the tipping point has happened, where there are more people who are saying this is straight bullshit and we're not accepting it anymore.
Right.
Now you can't go back. It's the genie's out the bottle. You can never go back.
So we're going to start seeing more. So you're saying that we're going to start seeing more companies diverse themselves before they even present themselves in front of.
You're going to have to. You're going to have to.
So they're going to, yeah. So
you're going to have policies in place even before you hire people. What's our hiring policy? How are we going to make sure that we don't have unconscious bias? How are we going to make sure that we're not that we're welcoming? How are we going to, and we don't know these communities. So now we have to go do active outreach in these communities. How are we going to do that and not make it come back and bite us in the ass because we've said or done something in the communities when we had the best of intentions that backfired on us, because now you got to bring somebody from that community with you because you don't know. And so when I wrote my article, and I'm actually thinking about making this one of my presentations, no comment needed. Mm-hmm. And the first line is just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I know. I think I love that.
Yeah, and it's not okay. So as a high school teacher, there were often times I had to just do something crazy just to get my students' attention, because they were just like, and they were just shocked. It's like you shock them back, and then they're like, oh, okay. So that's what the whole title is. If I start my thing with just shut the fuck up, people are like, what? What the hell? What the? Yeah. And so that gets people attention to say, for the first time, white men, your opinion is not the only opinion that matters, and you're not the expert in the room. So if you're not the expert in the room and you intend to do business with cultures, communities, constituents that are not like you, then you need to do a damn good job of making sure you recruit those people who can help you do that. Again, it's economics. It's economics. And I mean, I'm not naive enough to get offended by that. It is what it is.
Well, yeah, because Kim, we know you don't hold shit back.
Yeah, it is what it is.
There's no holding nothing back, and that's why we love you so much, because you make it so real. Especially no matter what, it was so bad, because remember when we say like Fabio.
Yes.
We met in Italy.
Yeah.
Fabio said, "I know somebody you need to talk to."
Yeah.
You know Kim Crayton? Dude, that's all I do know.
Yeah,
we live. Shit, she lived right down the street from me.
Yeah.
You know how it is in Atlanta. It's like we're right around the corner.
He sent me that tweet, and I was like, dude, we know each other. We know each other. Yeah.
And so when I talk about when we.
Okay, let me stop you right there, because I want that needs to be celebrated. That two black women from Atlanta are known around the world.
Yes.
That I want to take a moment and take that in. The fact that you could be in Italy.
I'm getting goosebumps
Yes,
with
that you could be in Italy and somebody say, who I met in Puerto Rico,
Yeah.
say, hey, do you know this black woman? And you're like, yeah, we do.
Yeah. And it's amazing though. Kim.
But we're paving the way.
But you started that with me. And I mean, I didn't think about, when I started applying for it, like when I applied for the talks last year, and I was like, and then we found out that that idiot became president. I was like, oh, my life is fucked up right now. I was like, 2017 is going to be so fucked up for me. It's like, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm getting all these accepting into these conferences. I was like, okay, so maybe just because he's there, then there's like a
See, that's what I was supposed to say. I had a totally different experience. Okay, so I am not of a political bent. I'm always thinking about the economics of stuff, and that's just, or the business. And for me, I wasn't discouraged by him becoming president. It actually encouraged me because it broke down all barriers. You cannot say that you need this requirement, this requirement, this requirement to be anything in the United States anymore. So for me, it was just like, well, fuck. If I ever doubted my ability to conquer this tech thing, why the fuck would I could do this. And the whole thing is because my workshops is Taming the Wild West, because there is no path to this.
Right,
so it's very discouraging. It's very it's very, because we come from a culture that there's a path to everything. If you want to be a teacher, you want to be
Yes.
So for this not to have a path, it was very unsettling for me. But his coming in, and I felt that he made this shit up as he was going. I was like, fuck this. I can do it the same thing. And I embraced it.
I never thought about it.
Yes, I embraced
it.
it.
But I think that, as being a African American woman,
yes,
and we seeing, a smart black president step out, lead, because his term was up, and then we get an idiot, and then thinking about how much is he gonna fuck up the United States.
Yeah, see, I didn't.
That's how I was looking at it.
Yeah.
So
Again, my philosophy is: do I want to be right or do I want to be happy?
Right.
And so for me, it's how can I make this happy for me?
Right.
And for me, I chose to see it through rose-colored glasses. Like, damn, the opportunities for marginalized and underrepresented people are just amazing now. Because what can you say can stop us? You have no sound ground to say that we don't belong here anymore.
Yeah.
We can make this shit up.
Right. And I mean, right now, like what you said, is like us traveling the world.
Yes.
And us making a name for ourselves, and being like the only black woman at a conference in Australia. And I don't even have technical talks. I talk about community. Yeah, that's how I started too.
It's like my only technical talk is how to do documentation. Shit. And so it's just like
it's like one of those things,
and so,
but it's a need for it.
Exactly.
One thing is a need for it too is that they don't see too many African American women talking in these other countries, and they want to hear what we have to say about.
They want to know again. That's why novels work. Mm-hmm. They tell a story. People want to hear other people's. So you have people who will stick to one genre. Let's say you like romance books, and you may like just one author, but most people don't. If you like romance books, you like several different authors, right, because they tell stories differently. That's what this is. It's telling a story.
Yeah, but our story is like, hey, I'm you. You're from America. So, like, we look around like, God damn it. Everybody else, I have to bring my husband with me because I don't want to be the only one.
Yeah. And so I embrace it. I just I have been growing up black female in Atlanta. My mom did a great job, and I didn't see it at the time, but did a great job. I was the only most of the time. I was in acting classes. Wherever I was in, I was usually the only black there. I spent my life being the only. And so I'm going to give you this history because this is why no one can tell me my story is invalid, because I'm like, fuck you. And because I lived in Atlanta in a time when blacks didn't live above 20. People didn't live in Alpharetta. People didn't live in Lilburn. We didn't live up north of 20. That just wasn't the case. And then I had because I was attending a Catholic church, a very progressive Catholic church at the time. My godparents were white, and they lived in a community that did not have black people. And I remember them taking me to the grocery store and people stopping and staring at me as I walked through the grocery store because they hadn't seen it. Now think about this as a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old girl. How safe did I feel being around that? So none of this shit, everybody wants to be surprised that there's racism, and that's because it didn't affect you. So it was not something that you, again, it was your privilege. It wasn't my privilege. I was above 20, and black kids weren't above 20. I was also always loud and had an opinion. And so I got all the time, that's not ladylike. And if one more person with a penis told me something wasn't ladylike, I'm just gonna slap the shit out of somebody. Because who are you to say? And so I spent years trying to push myself in a mold to fit other people. And it wasn't until I got in my 40s when I started, it was late 30s, when I went back to myself. At 27, I realized that I was damn near, I was depressed. And something had to give. But because I had all these experiences and my mom had all these books in the house about, I knew about reading books about visualization back in the 80s, 70s and 80s before other people even, it's the fad thing now. But I had books on creative visualization and the law of attraction. I had these books in my house
law of attraction.
years ago. And so when I was about 27, I was just like miserable. I just this has to be more to this. And so I just started putting into practice. Well, first of all, I was had just had an experience that that shook me to my core. And I don't want to go into that, but my mom suggested I go to counseling. And after a few sessions of counseling, she was like, "You're really well adjusted." And I was like, okay, it was just, I needed to talk through whatever that was. And so I asked her a question. Because again, the scientist, the researcher in me, I had been hearing stuff about the biochemistry of brains and how if you let's say you experience a death or an explained loss, and so you're grieving and you're sad, and that's not depression, that's just a part of the grieving process. It only becomes depression, let's say you broke up with your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. They only diagnose it with depression if a certain amount of time has gone by and you've kind of moved beyond that thing, but you're still having those behaving in the same way. It's months out, you're no longer actually grieving that relationship, but you're still not getting out of the bed. You're still not. So what has happened at that point is your brain chemistry has changed. You've been in this cycle for so long that the chemistry of your brain has changed. That was empowering for me because it was like, if it changed one way, can I change it back? That was the question I asked. And she said, yes. It was off to the races for me because that told me I had power and that this shit wasn't inevitable. It wasn't fated. I wasn't fated to be depressed. And
at some point in my life, I was thinking the same thing about the brain. There's so much, there was my curiosity to say, okay, what can the brain do? I would like, my husband would tell me something and he would think I'm not listening. And I told him, I'm listening. It's just that at that moment, I hear you and it's being stored in this other part of my brain because I'm not ready to use it yet. And then that curiosity is like, hey, wait a minute. I figured it out. And I was like, so I can hear everything a person say and just not say anything and just absorb it and understand it. And then say, okay, no, I need to know a little bit more about it and do some research on it. When I was younger, I would never.
It would have been reactive.
Yes.
You would have reacted on things. Yes. And so, but I want to sit this caveat here. I'm not saying that depression is not real. I'm not saying that, and it's sad how many people in this industry are challenged with depression. What I'm saying for me, knowing that it was brain chemistry,
and that through working on things that challenged the shit out of me, because it was not a hard. I mean, I said I started this at 27. I'm 48, and I'm now comfortable in my. That's what 21 years. Of work of working through my shit.
Yeah.
To get to a place where, in most cases, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy?
Yeah.
Are my choices.
But you gotta remember too. You know, when I got to that age, like you said, with that late 30s or in the 40s, I started to evaluate my life along the way, and start to see, okay, you know, and get mad. I would get mad at myself for things I have done stupid, but then realize that it wasn't stupid. It was just something that I had to experience.
And it's those experiences and how you related to them, good, bad, or indifferent, that make you who you are.
Exactly.
And it helps to tell your unique
Right.
story. So that's my whole one about just shut the fuck up, because my story is this is my lived experience, and that's the word I like to use. It's my lived experience,
Right.
and I have every right. And so this is the change that's happening. In the past, we people of marginalized, underrepresented communities had to listen to the lived experience of one sect of people. And we didn't say anything because it was threat. I mean, being from the South, you could be lynched. There's a whole bunch of stuff if you. I mean, there was a threat of bodily harm, or being blackballed, being lost, losing your job. Well, you can't do that shit anymore. You cannot. So it's a thing of, for the first time, I am safe enough. I am bold enough. And honestly, I just don't give a fuck about your opinions. That I know that my story, my lived experience, will help someone else to share their lived experience.
Because I remember so many times that I would just not say, want to say something, and was afraid to say something.
And it's like I don't have to be a bitch about it. I say what I have to say.
Now,
I'm very clear. But exactly. And I also practice. My dad was that kind of. My dad and my grandfather. I'm glad I had them in my life, because how most people are very passive aggressive. They say stuff. They say something, but they mean something else. That was never. I had those experiences, but as I started doing those, examining my life, I would say something, and my dad would say something. I would say, "What do you mean?" He said, "That's what I said, and that's what I meant." And I was like, "I don't understand that," because I was so used to having to decipher, having to translate what people really meant by what they said, and having my grandfather and my dad in my life, who were people who very much, if I said A, I don't mean Z, I mean A.
Yeah.
If I wanted to talk about Z, I'd talk about Z. And they were great role models in helping me craft that, because what it did was, like you were saying, it allowed me to not respond to stuff right away, to take stuff in and process it, and figure out how I wanted to respond to stuff. So, so as an example, with the Junior Dev mentoring, the code of conduct that we have, there was, so I begrudgingly, I did not want to come into this space of having conversations about inclusion, diversity, and safe space. I did not want to, because I've seen how people are treated in the space. And now again, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? So I was like, how could I come into this space and not and be happy? How could I do this and be happy? Because that's my ultimate goal. And so I had decided, I don't want to talk to you about your politics, because I'm not here to change your mind. I want to talk to you about your morals, because that's your lived experience. What I can talk to you about is economics. So that's what I decided to come in from an economics perspective. And that was a week before my podcast post, the first one, in my group, Junior Dev Mentoring, somebody who's not even in my group posted a screenshot on Twitter and tagged the group and tagged a part of it that was talking about isms, and made a comment that code of conducts are no different from political manifestos. And so I screenshot that and sent it to a few people to ask, because that was the first time that happened to me, like, oh, is this what I think this is? And they were like, yeah, it's trolling. They're trying to get a response out of you.
Right.
And so when he wrote it, before I screenshot it, I asked, is there a question you're trying to ask? Because I was like, what is your question?
Right.
And so by the time I talked to a few people and figured out what this was, and I was still at the time trying to figure out how I was going to respond to any kind of negative thing that was inevitably going to come my way based on this podcast. And so by the time I got back to it, several people, again, who are not in my community, were doing the whole it's reverse racism thing, blah, 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 blah. And so his response was, read the screenshot. And I said, okay. Then I was very clear that there was not a conversation he was trying to have. So at that point, I said, this works for my community. And it was on a Sunday. Have a great Sunday and happy 4th of July, because 4th of July was coming around. I was done. And so even you were like, because you know the person, you're like, oh, I blocked him. But I didn't want to do that yet. So I was like, again, let me give myself 24 hours to figure out what this was. And in 24 hours, several of these individuals were, again, not in my community, because a few people in my community were trying to answer their, to defend. And I was like, no, what I was seeing was, now this is putting my community's safety at risk. I've done a great job of creating an environment where people feel safe, to be mentor, everybody feels safe there. So I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to respond to this. And at that point, I blocked them because I didn't want to be reactionary. I wanted to make sure, because again, it's a public forum. People have
the right to speak, to have their opinion, right? But they didn't have the right to insult you.
Well, it didn't even insult me. But for me, it was, I also too have a right to expose myself to what I choose to expose myself to. That's what it was.
Right.
So it wasn't even that you did anything to me. It was that as a community leader, I have a responsibility to take care of my community.
Right.
But even in that job, when I'm looking at, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? I get to choose the shit I look at.
Right.
And I don't choose to look at your shit.
Yeah.
So that's when I blocked them.
Right.
And so it's again, when companies, and this is what Google did, when companies look at the greater picture, okay, he had a right to say it, but what you don't have a right to do is make my business uncomfortable for people who work there. That's what you don't have a right to do.
Exactly, and
that's the bottom line, and that's it on that conversation. So people can argue that all day long, but the fact that people felt unsafe in a place of business, and I need them because they're my employees. I need them to get their jobs done. But they're not getting their jobs done because they're dealing with this shit. Now you're taking me off my game. That's just the bottom line of that.
So let's talk about, because there's two other things I want to talk about before we go. And I'm gonna let the last thing be something that we're gonna end with the show. But let's talk about our Women of Code Atlanta.
Okay, what about it?
What do you mean? What about them? You?
I thought you had something specific to say.
So you know that it's like
that's home.
It's like
that's
our
family. That's home. That's,
you know,
that's home. That's my tech home.
And so,
and speaking at Re-Rise, that was the first time that my family saw me speak, and I was so fucking nervous. I was yes, it was important to me that
I was so mad that I didn't get to see you speak because we were handling so much up. I was so hurt. I was like, God damn it, I can't see you. And I was like, Beth and me and Erica was like running around. I said, Beth, did you go see Kim speak? No, I didn't go see. What the hell? I mean, so it was like, I was like, next time we need to put her in the main because I need to see her. I didn't want you. And really, I was so hurt because you was upstairs.
Why?
Because I couldn't go upstairs.
Oh, okay.
Because when you said that you were speaking, I was like, and you said, okay, Alicia, we'll be speaking in an hour. And then when I looked, it was already 30 minutes past. I was like, this is shit.
Well, for me, it was important that, again, it's like when you were a kid, you did shit at the house that when you went out in the public, you knew you didn't do. You always on your best behavior. So that's what that was for me. It was like, I got to represent my family. I have to be on. I have to be this. And I was so happy that it was recorded, that There was a member.
You did record it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Then I need to find it because I need it.
It's on my YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on my YouTube.
Because I need to see it.
Yeah, it's on my YouTube.
Because everybody raved. I mean, every conference that you've been to or anybody, because there's more than one person that told me about you wherever I went to that heard you speak. And so I'm like, I want to hear her speak. I'm wanting to hear you speak. I need to hear you speak. And so we know whenever somebody talks about, I think somebody locally said, have you heard Kim Crayton speak? I was like, hold up a second. Listen, Kim Crayton, we don't need to know. We know how she is. We just know how she is. She's crazy. She's just, yes. And she's our crazy Kim Crayton. Nobody else can claim her.
But it's not crazy. It's just,
it's
I
real.
just don't give a fuck, and I'm gonna say what
it's
is
real.
Yeah, exactly.
And this
where
is
everybody is playing around,
like you said.
And
white males don't know what real is.
Well, no, that's not. I'm not gonna say that. White males know what their real is.
Right. Okay.
They know what their real is.
But they haven't heard.
But that is not the totality of what real is. So let me give you an example. This is an illustration I like to use. Let's say we're all painting a picture. So there's a nude model standing there, and we're in a circle around the nude model, and we're all painting the picture. We're all painting the same nude model, but based on where we're sitting in our perspective, we're all painting something different.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
And so for us to get the complete picture of the nude model, we need all those perspectives there. So again, I'm not saying white men are the enemy. No, they're the key to opening the doors for us, because we don't have the key.
Yeah, we don't.
So we need them as allies to say, you know what, Kim, Alicia, we like what you're doing. I'm going to introduce you to these people, because let's be honest, neither of us have gotten paid for this.
No.
We're flying all over the world having these conversations, and no one has yet to say, hey. Now, I don't want to work for anybody because I like being independent.
Right.
But no one has yet said, hey, what you're saying, we see as value in the community. How can we compensate you? Because all of this is great, but it doesn't pay my mortgage. And so we need those men who are, that's what they do. They open doors, they find funding, they do all these things. So we need them to vouch for us, because this is new for us.
Right.
We
And
need
you're
them
right
to
about
open
that.
the door.
Right.
So I have nothing but what I say. Again, they have only the perspective of one part of the picture of the new model.
And see, because Women of Code is like, it's one of those things that the Atlanta chapter, we have built such a huge
community.
Yeah, we
are. It's
and also
it's the community that I actually compare other communities that I'm in and how valuable they are to me. If I'm not getting that kind of support from the other communities, there really is no need for me to be there.
Because doing the Re-Rise and reaching out to all these companies, and they already knew who we were, and they're saying, us learning from doing a conference was like, okay, next time we're not doing this shit at last minute getting sponsorship. But we already have made our mark with so many companies, because they're like, oh, that's who y'all are, or oh, we heard of y'all. And so that, and even now we're like, okay, why can't I get Apple? You know what I'm saying? But then that's a whole different story. But the thing is that we branded ourselves so well in Atlanta that even the companies in Atlanta who knew we are.
And we've done that because we work well together.
Yes.
We've done that because we, as a leadership team, sat down and determined what we wanted, what role, because there's some stuff I don't want to do. I'm in charge of newbies and speaking. All the other stuff, y'all can handle that. I don't feel like, that's not, again, right or happy, that doesn't make me happy.
I know, but
and so everybody was like, oh, you don't want to do that? I want to do that.
Yeah.
So it's like everybody feel the role.
And so that's what we were trying, that's what it was like, how we could find people to do, who do certain things. And so, that's why I love my Women Code. I love how we connect. I love how we are family. I love how we fight for each other.
Oh my God. How many showed up for my workshop?
Yeah.
Just showed up.
Yeah.
Just sort of sat in the back. People, the ones who participated, people just showed up just to say, we're here to support you.
Well, the next one you have, we're going to get more people to
yeah. Oh,
I love that you did Periscope.
Yes.
On Twitter.
Yes.
I was shocked. It went very well.
Where were you shocked? Because that was the only second time I did. It was so funny because Angel helped me again, a women in code person.
You know what?
Helped me figure it out the weekend before.
I didn't know it would look like that. It looked really, really
Yes.
good. Like you said, the first part of your Periscope, you had a nice little following. I don't know how many you had with the second.
Yeah, nice.
It was nice too. So, and you did it at the right time. So it's knowing when and where to do it.
Yeah, because I wasn't gonna Periscope my whole workshop because the workshop is $125.
Yeah.
But what I could do is Periscope the panels.
The discussion panels.
Yeah, the discussion panels.
And I'm thinking, I said that would be nice if we could, do some of that at the We Rise.
Because that panel we had, that would have been great. If we had,
because that would have been a great marketing tool for us to push for
next year.
Exactly. So so those are things I'm like, my husband talked about it, doing it for his stuff, but it's like, for me, it's like you have to do something that's going to be a niche that somebody's just going to gradually pick up. Knowing when to do it is the most important thing. Yeah. It's knowing when to do it, because doing it at 8 o'clock in the morning is not going to work
if you don't market it. It would work fine if you market it, but the fact that I had so far over 100 people have viewed it, and I only announced it less than 24 hours before it was happening. So that speaks volumes to my network and what I've done to build my network, and people are willing to hear what I have to say. But it also speaks volumes to the power of technology. And Periscope is a great platform for people to tell their stories.
Right. So let's talk about the podcast. Okay.
Your podcast?
Your podcast.
Okay. What about it?
What made you come up to doing that? Because I love the fact that you're doing it, and I love the fact that how you're approaching it, and I see that it can actually be used to solve a problem.
And that's, again, right or happy. So I come from an entrepreneurial business perspective. How can I use my voice? Because for me, the reason I started it was because I'm so sick of seeing panels. I'm so sick of seeing organizations. I'm so sick of seeing people talk about diversity and inclusion and putting no resources behind it.
What you mean? When I was at the AWS and I was sitting there I was looking at, it hurt. I didn't like to be the strong one of the bunch, because I was trying to be as real as possible to get them to understand. I didn't want to be the softie. I didn't want to let's just pinch on the issue.
And so it's great. And so it's like popular to have these panels, but are people putting resources behind them? Are people paying people like me to come out and speak, or to create curriculums, or to train people, or doing these other things, who have the skill to do these? So it started with that frustration, because we're never going to move forward on these until put your money where your mouth is. We know what business is. We're not gonna, this stuff doesn't work unless people put money behind it. That's just the bottom line. And so I wanted to have some, let's have some honest conversations about this. Some of these conversations I'm having may make me uncomfortable, but that's okay, because I'm gonna be all right, because people have and it's not me being uncomfortable because they have what they're saying. I don't have that perspective, and so it's like I'm so ignorant. So just having Jamie on the show, who's a transgender woman with the MBA, talk to me about the terms or the transgender jargon, because I don't know it. That was just like, oh my God, it just opened my perspective to a lot of things. So for me, I'm reaching out to people in organizations and communities who are willing to talk about the economic side of this, why inclusion, diversity, and safe spaces are important. And I can say that I'm very pleased with the caliber of guests that I've had. I'm having some really big people in tech, a lot of people admire, come on the show and talk about this, and this includes white men. So it's been very, on several occasions, I'm almost in tears, because I feel so humbled that people feel safe enough to tell their stories.
Yeah.
And that to me is a privilege. Yeah. I take that it's very important to me.
Remember, we can make people talk.
Yeah. So I don't have comments on my, because again, shut the fuck up. You don't need to comment on these people's experiences. You can either listen, you can learn, or you don't, and it's okay.
I like the fact you said, I'm not going to allow you to put comments on there.
No, there are no comments on my website.
Gonna listen, or
there are no comments.
Call it a day.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
Babe, girl, you know I love you.
I love you too.
Girl, you know, it's the one thing we talked about. It's like, we ain't never been together like this ever.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'm so glad I got you all to myself.
Yeah, we haven't. We've never, as many people talk about us, we've never been in the same space at the same time.
Me, you, and nobody else. And I'm like loving this shit. I love it. And I'm like so glad that we sat down and talked. And
there's a reason that our last conversation didn't record, because this is a much richer conversation.
And it's like more comfortable, more relaxed. And we were with a bunch of people, and we were running back and forth.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just too much going on. So now it's like I'm appreciative of how we are able to sit and talk, and I'm glad that we both are like at the same level, but doing so many different things.
Yeah, and that's the value of when people. Of why I like this, because I'm not in competition with you, and you're not in competition with me.
Girl.
So that's why I'm saying you didn't take my place as a keynote or whatever.
Well, I was just joking.
But I want to address that.
Yeah.
Because somebody will say, "Man, look at these women," and that's not what it is. There's enough opportunity for all of us out here.
Of course,
and that's what I love about this tech space. Because once tech gets this inclusion, diversity, and safe spaces shit right, other industries will have to follow.
Yeah.
And so so I'm so excited to be. It's like we're trailblazers. I'm so excited. To be a
I
trailblazer.
know because you fussed at me. It's like, what the hell you say that for on what was it on Twitter? Remember I said?
Oh God, yeah.
I was like, no, I have to say that because I have to always remind myself that I love my women, and always remember to humble myself to say that if I would not have been there without y'all. Because like I said, we both know we have this, we put the right people around us.
Yes.
We don't want the drama. We put the right people around us. That I got Erica to say, you shouldn't be doing this shit. I got Kim to say, I'm going to kick you in the ass. Fuck that shit. You know, and I got Beth saying, Alicia, you all right. My baby. So you put that because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. Exactly. And that's why I always have
that's the value of community, and that's what makes businesses grow. And that's why organizational culture is so important, because you want people to feel safe in their environment, because when they feel safe, they put in people think the opposite. They're not going to leave because the grass is not always greener. And if you've shown love and not even love, compassion, and you've invested in their growth, they will stay there for lower paying money, because the other side is not worth it.
Yeah, and I tell people a lot of.
And so that's what people need. Businesses think about.
I mean, so that's another thing too. People's like, what is your value? My value is happiness.
Yes. I'm not giving it up for anybody.
And I tell them, they said, so money is not your value. Money can't make you happy, babe.
Now, trust me. Now, I want that, but I'm not going to.
I'm saying. If you're saying 6 figures is going to make me happy with a company that's going to make me lousy, I won't take it. I would take something less to be happy.
Yes.
And so that's what I'm really trying to say.
And then that's what I'm saying. So let's end on this, because I've done this unofficial poll, and this is something people think about. When I talk to people from underrepresented and marginalized communities, and I ask them if there's a job. Let's say we'll say the minimum pay is $70,000, because is a good minimum pay for most people.
Right.
There's a minimum pay of $70,000, and one company will give you $10,000 more, but the culture is toxic, or what you would consider toxic. Would you take it? And in every situation, somebody from underrepresented and marginalized communities said no. They would take the lower paying job to feel safe in their environment. That's economics.
Yep. So, babe, thank you so much. I'm so thankful. I'm so blessed to have you in my sister world, system realm, and I can't just.
Well, I appreciate what you do.
I know.
And I love you too,
girl. So thank you, everybody. This is Kim Crayton. She already put her Twitter handles out there and her website, so we ain't got to repeat it no more. Thank you, Kim, for doing the interview with me.
Thank you for having me. Love you.
Love you all. Bye.